Coming up on America Sews, our guest is Michelle Griffith.
I'm going to be making the fancy treasured pouch.
Plus yarn couching with Julie Mallory. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to America Sews. I'm Sue Hausman. Today we welcome a very special guest, Michelle Griffith from Robeson Anton. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Well, you have brought some absolutely lovely things.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing this beautiful quilt for the wall. Tell us about that.
This is the Victorian romance quilt that was just designed, and it has all different color of threads and embroidery and lots of decorative stitches and even some bobbin work.
Yes, it's just beautiful, and it kind of goes with what's on the table here.
Yes, it does.
This is a table runner?
Table runner and coordinating pillow project.
Okay, the pillow, tell us about that. Oh, I see you have netting over it.
Lots of netting, and again, bobbin work at the top, some embroidery, and just to add a touch, a little tassel and some cording.
So lots of coordinating fabrics, and this is something that you teach, I know, quite a lot around the country.
Absolutely.
You've done some beautiful pillows here too that are in the browns, the chocolate pillows. Aren't they beautiful?
Thank you.
And they coordinate embroideries as well, don't they?
They do. We've got a matching monogram with the beautiful butterflies and bellflowers. And then on the other one, we've got some buttonholes. And I don't know if you can turn that around or not, but look at the back. We've got some beautiful buttonholes around the back.
Oh, look at that.
Aren't those pretty?
Embroidered buttonholes.
Yes, embroidered buttonholes. And then we have that English cotton netting again on the scallops on the front.
Very, very beautiful. Very nice. Well, you were kind enough to bring this jacket. It was kind of a funny thing. We met somewhere, and tell everybody about this great jacket.
Oh my gosh, Sue, it was so neat. We were in Puyallup, Washington, and we were at a convention, and there you were sitting with a friend of mine that happened to have that jacket on. And you said, oh, what a beautiful jacket. And my friend Andy, she made the jacket, and what's neat about the jacket is also it's reversible, which is neat.
Yeah, it opens up and you could wear it either way. It has embroideries on both sides.
Yes, absolutely. And a little fringe on the sides and some cording at the top. And you had asked Andy if you could wear the jacket on set, and she said, oh, she would be honored. That
would be great, because it kind of ties with what we're doing today.
Absolutely.
With all of the beautiful Victorian look.
Absolutely.
But you've brought a great project for our viewers. I'm really excited, because this is something that's going to give them a lot of different techniques to try, and yet they end up with a great project. Tell us about it.
This one is so fun to do, and these techniques can be used in so many other projects too as well. We have this pretty fancy treasured pouch, I call it, and we've got embroidery on this one, and we've got some applique on this one, and then this is called faux insertion here.
So these rows are faux insertion.
Absolutely.
You're going to teach us that.
And then also at the top there's a little ruffle and some entredot stitching, and I weave some ribbon through the entredot stitching to make a little tie there.
So you wove the ribbon through the wing needle stitching?
Yes, exactly.
And then gathered it up to make the ruffle.
And it was so easy too. And then add a little scallop at the top, and then trimmed away any excess fabric, which I'll be showing as well.
Wow. Now, I see that the kind of the foundation of the front is this what I call diamond tucking.
Yes, pin tucking.
And you're going to show us how to get started.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. Okay. Well, what I've done, I've taken a 10 by 10 piece of fabric, and just diagonally I drew a line, again, down the center of the fabric with a disappearing marking pen. And I'm just going to take this to the machine. This is so easy. This is the beautiful effect, Sue, that you're going to be getting with the
once you finish stitching it. Yes. You've got those crosshatch tucks.
Great. And I'm using actually 2 spools of thread here, and what I'll be doing is putting 2 spools of thread at the top of the machine.
Now I think we can see those here, that we have the 2 spools. These aren't exactly the same color pink though, are they?
No, which makes it even more exciting because it really makes the project more unique. We have different shading throughout, which I just love to use different colors of thread for that.
Great.
And so throughout the project we'll be doing that.
Different tones of pink, but they go together.
Absolutely.
And so we have different tones of pink, green, and the lavender and the blue, and that's all used in this project, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I've set up my machine for twin needle.
And the other thing, of course, is when you set it for the size twin needle you're using, you'll actually see that then as you sew it. So that keeps, it's just a safety. Okay, so we're ready to stitch twin needle sewing, 2 threads.
Great.
And you've already inserted the twin needle. Do you have a special size twin needle you're using?
I have a 2.5, and I did select the 2.5.
Okay.
Okay.
And any special foot, Michelle?
I'm using the 5-groove pin tucking foot for this technique.
Okay, so this has 5 grooves on the underside, and pin tuck feet again are available for most machines, and often there are 3 groove and 5 groove, lots of different sizes, and that's a bigger size. And different sizes go with different sizes of twin needles.
True.
Good.
Okay, there you go.
So then once you have stitched 1 row, then you go on to stitch additional rows?
Yes, and what we're going to do is we're going to stitch rows down one side and then the other side of the fabric, and then we'll flip the fabric around and do the same on the opposite side until we have a whole piece of fabric that has been sewn.
You have a trick so we don't have to, we only have to mark one line, right?
Absolutely.
And I bet that line's going to disappear from the disappearing marker by the time you finish almost.
That's true, and I'm going to be using my quilting guide on my machine, and I'm going to run that quilting guide right down the center of that first pin tucking stitch that we did.
And again, most machines come with a quilting guide.
Yes.
Or edge guide, it's called on some machines, and it's got lots more uses than just channel quilting. And I can see you don't have any stabilizer underneath.
No, we want to leave the stabilizer off for this technique.
And that's so that they will, this time you don't want it to stay real flat.
Right.
You want those to tunnel up into tucks. And now we can see it with the one that's got the stitching done. So I can see that actually could go pretty fast.
It does. It goes by very fast.
All right, so once you've got that all pin tucked, and your next step would be to add some additional embellishment, right?
Absolutely. What we've done here is on this pouch, we've shown embroidery, and on this one, we've shown this applique right here with some, again, some decorative stitches and some scallops, and add a little bit of sparkle.
And you have that underneath there, don't you, to show?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Go ahead and show that. Okay. Well, the first one, here you go. Thank you. The first one is the embroidery. And I embroidered that right down the center of the fabric.
Now that's where you used a single thread through the eye of the needle.
Right,
You wouldn't double, and you used a regular needle. So you would set up for embroidery and do that embroidery.
Right.
Okay. And having the right colors, of course, is important.
Yes. Okay. Now what we've got is, if you would like to do the applique, which I think is very nice on there, what we'll do is there is a template that comes with the directions.
And we will have complete instructions on the website. And you're known for writing very easy and elegant instructions.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Are good to follow.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we're going to take a piece of plastic template and we're going to cut it out to the size of our template. And then we're just going to go ahead and pick a bouquet on our fabric, and we're going to lay that down just like that. Let me get this fabric so you can actually see it.
So you have it right side up, huh?
Right, right.
So fussy cut.
We're going to fussy cut, exactly. And then we've done that, and we're going to get the whole bouquet in.
Okay.
And
then you would applique it.
Applique it, right, exactly. And that's where I've used, again, the 2 spools of thread here and through the eye of the one needle. So we'll put one needle in and then put 2 spools of thread through the machine, but through the one needle.
So here again, you've got 2 of the blues, but they're not exactly the same.
Right.
And this time you remove the twin needle and threaded with one. Do you use a larger eyed needle for that?
I like the 9014 top stitching needle. I think that works great.
9014 top stitch.
Yes.
And you run those threads as one through the needle.
As one. And you'd be surprised what a beautiful effect that you get on that.
And do you use an open toe foot when you do applique?
I like an open toe foot, which we have one here to show you, Sue, what I've used. And that gets you to be able to see really easily where you're going.
Okay, great. So either embroider your tucked piece or applique it, and then you've added some additional stitches around that applique, haven't you?
Yes, I really wanted to embellish this some more, so I added a scallop decorative stitch, and again 2 spools of thread, 2 different colors of pink. And then for the purple inside, I took a decorative stitch, made it quite a bit smaller, and used 2 spools of thread again, and that would be in the purple.
So you're doing most of this decorative stitching with 2 strands of 40 weight rayon thread, but threaded through the same eye of the same needle.
Right, and that, and what I like about that is it really makes the decorative stitches pop off the fabric, and and with the 2 different colors of thread, you really get some nice gradation of color.
Great.
Okay.
Now here's your embroidery version, and on both of them you added this technique, didn't you?
Absolutely, and that is, we call it faux insertion. And what I've done is I marked a line down the center of the fabric, and then from the center, about 4 inches to the right and to the left, I drew a line and just went, again, 2 spools of thread and selected a decorative stitch from my machine, and then, again, sewed down there.
And we should point out, for all this embroidery and decorative stitching, and for what you're doing now, you are using a tearaway stabilizer.
Absolutely.
So once those twin needle tucks are finished, you're putting a tearaway stabilizer underneath the fabric.
Which you can, again, see here, Sue.
Okay. That you would tear away later.
Right, and make sure you have it large enough that will get all your decorative stitches.
Oh, this is true. Okay.
Yes. A little bit of detail there. Okay, and now we have some entre-deux stitching that we've done with a wing needle and 1 spool of thread this time.
Okay.
And the wing needle makes these real pretty holes in your fabric, and then with 1 spool of thread, that looks really nice. And again, that is an entre-deux stitch that's on.
So the wing needle actually pokes holes in the fabric, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And
It
just
does,
makes it
yeah.
look very nice.
And I know you said you used a pre-wound bobbin, but white pretty much would be what you
White,
use?
or you can, if you have one handy, you can use it in the bone color as well.
Okay.
Just something like color because of the holes that will maybe show through. But I love using the entre-deux stitching.
So when you say faux insertion, now you have the look of an insertion lace.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, adding the scallops, which I've done here, really makes it look like insertion. And again, it just looks like we just put some insertion and just placed it right on there, but we've made our own.
And here again, did you use the heavier, the two spools of thread?
I used 2 spools of the pink, and that really gives it some great color too.
And I know you're going to demonstrate that for us later. Basically, that would be the finished front, whether it be the applique or the embroidered piece. That would be the finished front, ready to go. And so the next step would be to add the little ruffle?
Yes, add a little ruffle on top.
Okay, and you're going to show us how to make that. Good.
Okay. Now, when the ruffle actually gets completed, we'll have a larger piece to start with, and then we're going to cut it down. What I've done is I've done some decorative stitching, and again, some entre-deux, which we now know how to do it, because we've done it on the faux insertion, and then adding some scallop at the top, and then cutting away the excess fabric. I think that makes a really nice technique, and makes it real cute at the top.
Okay.
Okay. So we're starting with a piece of fabric that is 6 inches wide by 18 inches long. Okay, I've cut that. I'm ready to go. And then at the bottom,
now it feels like this is starched. Do you starch your fabric?
I did starch it. Thank you for reminding me, so I appreciate that. What I've done, I've added 3 layers of spray starch, and and it really makes a big difference when you're doing these types of decorative stitches. And the same thing with my fabric here. I did spray starch ahead of time. 3 layers, ironing in between each layer of spray starch.
Do you pre-wash the fabric or no?
I don't, because I like that sizing in there.
Yes.
And this is not a project that you're really going to be doing a lot of washing on. And so it really helps with decorative stitching.
So purchase spray starch. Just spray it, and then, of course, let it dry a little on the fabric before you touch it to the iron, or it all gets on the iron. And then do that 3 times to your whole piece before you cut it out.
Right.
Okay, great.
And it makes for a very nice piece of fabric, a little bit stiffer to get some
additional stability.
Decorative stitching. Right. And then what we're going to do is draw a line with our disappearing marking pen about 1 3/4 inches up from the bottom, and we're going to do just a line of decorative stitches, and again, that's 2 spools
I have to say, these were kind of unusual greens. I wouldn't have expected them, but they do really go with the whole theme, don't they?
Yes, they do. They really make a big difference. And again, you want your all your decorative stitching to show, so having the 2 spools of thread really make a big difference.
Okay.
And again, I've chosen a leaf.
And you have stabilizer under there as well?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Okay. Alrighty. So now that we get all done with that, actually we're going to come over here. And I like using the decorative stitches, the little flower choices that we have available. So what you're going to do is, again, if you're doing the blue flowers, you'll do all the blue at one time. So again, 2 spools of thread.
And are those done with a double thread too?
Yes.
Okay.
And through the one needle, through the eye of the one needle.
Mm-hmm.
And then randomly, wherever you like, do your little blue flowers. And then again, you can select a different flower if you like, and select a different color of thread. And I've chosen purple. And then at the end here, I've chosen the yellow.
And that just adds so much of a little spark. Yes. And so the last thing would be the scallops.
Yes.
And these are the same scallops you did on the other piece?
Yes.
And I think this is the piece. Would you sew them on?
What we're going to do is we're going to fold this fabric in half. So that way, all of our little threads here that are underneath are actually going to disappear. We're going to take the stabilizer out now, fold the fabric in half, press.
Okay.
And then we're going to put stabilizer on the back of our fabric, do our scallop stitches, and then when we get all done, we'll be doing the entre-deux stitches. Let me show you that. Again, keeping your stabilizer on your fabric until you get done, doing your entre-deux stitch, and then we're ready to just actually cut this in half and use one for the front and one for the back of our bag.
Now I think you were going to change to a standard needle and show us the scallops. I have this one ready for you if you'd like to show that.
Great.
Now you'd put in a 90 top stitch needle, and I think you've got one there.
Yes, I do.
And you take off that quilting guide because you don't need that anymore.
Right. Take that off. And take our foot off.
And you don't use a tucking foot, but of course you're threaded up with 2 threads right now, and you just change the needle.
Change the needle.
Okay. And then here's your screwdriver right there. I see it over there.
Thank you.
And I'll get you a needle out. How does that sound?
That would be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Because I'm pulling out a top stitch needle size 90-14. So we just pull out that twin needle and put this one in. And here again, this is the time when we have the opportunity then to take off that twin needle. And this would be the same with all different machines, where the machine, you set it for twin needle, and then you want to remember to unset it for twin needle, or it's going to be limiting your stitch width. We actually have run into that. Now I see that needle threader helps a lot, and most machines have a needle threader, so that would help a lot. You can thread those large-eyed needles, the double thread. I hope people understand now. Well, they will, because it was twin needle. Now you're using it as one thread.
Yes.
Okay, so if you'll go back in now
Sure.
and select your stitch, and I guess first thing would be to take off that twin needle.
Correct.
Again, most machines would remind you that you need to just turn it off because you're not using a twin needle any longer, and then you'd go ahead and select a scallop stitch. And the scallop stitches, there's lots of different ones, and they just sew the scallops direction. Now you said you changed the length and the width just a little bit.
Yes, on this one I changed it to 4.0, and again you can test your scallops and see which one that you'd like the best. Some of you might like a larger scallop, some would like a little smaller scallop.
And so the next step then would be to just sew it right along the edge of that.
Yeah, you're just going to again fold your fabric.
And do you use stabilizer for that?
Yes, we're going to need some stabilizer. And we have some.
And there's a strip right here.
Thank you.
There you go.
And again, I like to have a piece of stabilizer that's large enough so when I do my entre-deux stitching at the bottom, it will cover both.
Good. So if you could just show us maybe an inch or so.
Sure,
And
glad
then
to.
we're going to quickly show how you trim.
Okay.
And so
what I like to do is I like to run my my fabric right along the edge of my foot here that I have on. Okay.
So now the same way we were threaded up, in that we had 2 spools of pink threaded down to the needles, and we had both those threads through different needles on the twin needle, and now both those threads are going through one needle. So that's the way we would stitch the scallops. Michelle, this has just been great. We're going to have complete instructions for finishing and for trimming the scallops that you've done for us. Thank you for that on the website. But we're going to go now and see what Julie has brought as a quick project.
Great.
We're looking at a delightful wall hanging that was done with a yarn couching technique. And here to show us how is Julie Mallory. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you, Sue. It's great to be here. Michelle, I loved your bag. It was so cute.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So how do we get started with this?
Well, there's a couple different things you can do with yarn couching. We are doing it freehand, essentially, or free motion. You can also do it with embroidery. The first thing is picking your yarn, and there's a big pile of yarn. That's how it was purchased, as a big group of yarn, essentially.
One skein, but it had all these colors in it, which is really fun, hand-dyed.
Yes,
Yep.
and what we did is we separated out the colors. So then you might see the different colors from that one big skein of yarn. And then I wanted to find threads that would match those colors. So as I'm doing the free motion, the thread will match.
So you don't want to see the thread, you want to see the yarn. So you really want to choose the closest color match you can. And then I noticed this is also quilted in the background with a tone-on-tone thread.
Correct. So trying to match those threads together. There are two different feet you can choose from. You want to choose the right one for the size of your yarn. So there's a number 1 and a number 2. The difference is the millimeters. Is that right?
One is a 1 millimeter foot, the other is a 2 millimeter. That means the size of the hole.
Okay, so this yarn is a little bit thicker, so I'm going to use the number 2, and there's a threader to help you. So I'm just going to put the yarn through the threader.
My little yarn threader.
And then thread right through that foot, right through the hole in the front of that foot.
From top to bottom.
Yes.
Yep.
And then you want to make sure that your thread will flow freely, but will fill that hole completely.
Your yarn, right.
Yes, thank you.
It pulls through smoothly, but yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Now
Great.
there's 2 other guides that are on the back of the machine. I'm going to snap this on. Sue, if you can show us those 2 guides in the back.
Okay, these guides go right under the handle, and you run the yarn through those, and that will guide it into the foot from the back. And then, I mean, a really important thing, Michelle, is that this yarn be laid and kind of pooled on the table so that it's not going to tangle, that it comes up smoothly. And so you want that just to be laid out smoothly, and otherwise you'd get caught. But it's just going to, you're going to be amazed. So